we're clear for takeoff.
Welcome, one and all, to the Kings of the Heart podcast. My name is Tyreek Omari Walton. I am a licensed clinical marriage and family therapist here having conversations with you and my friends about relationships. Yes, that's what we talk about here. We get deep into the crevices of relationships, bringing you good information so you can walk away from this show thinking a little bit more clearly about what you could be doing to have a healthier relationship. And typically I have my partner in crime, Dr. John Hart, with me. He's not here today, but this is the Cypher of 3. Nope, I'm sorry, the Royal Cypher. Today is the Royal Cypher. And as you know, when we have the Royal Cypher, that means we're bringing our sisters, other licensed clinical marriage and family therapists who also do this work. And so today we have the one, the only Miss Weena Wise. Miss Wise, Weena.
Hey,
How you doing?
Tyreek.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I am on 10. It is going to be 70 degrees outside on this 26th day of
Oh my
January.
gosh, it is crazy. It's crazy.
I know, right? I
but
know.
I'll take it. I'm feeling good. You feeling good. So
That's right.
let's bring those good tidings to everybody.
Let's do it.
Yeah. What you been up to? Give us a quick update. How you been?
I know. I haven't seen you since what? December on the show? Yeah.
2023.
I have been growing the practice, doing all kinds of amazing things clinically with clients, and I'm really excited about the topic today.
Oh yeah. And so just as Weena brings it up, the topic today is about role strain, part two, because Dr. John and I had the opportunity to broach this conversation a little bit a couple weeks ago. And we felt like, you know what, we're not done. There's so much more that we can add to this conversation. And we wanted to have the whole team here today to be able to talk about it. But short of that, we have Weena, and Weena knows stuff. If you don't know about Weena, Weena knows. So Weena's going to help us break down this conversation a little bit further than we did last time. You can always go back and listen to episode 9 episode 9 of season 5 of Kings of the Heart, the first conversation around role strain. But today, Weena's going to bring her knowledge to the table. So let's start off simple and plain. For those people who might not have listened to episode 9 yet, can you give people a rundown, an idea, a feeling of what role strain is from your perspective and from what you see in your sessions?
Sure. When you say role strain, for a second, I scratch my head a little bit because it sounds so technical, but role strain is the exhaustion or fatigue that one can feel from the duties and responsibilities that they carry in a relationship. And quite simply put, too much of anything is a bad thing.
True
So
enough.
if you are carrying all of the responsibility in one area of the relationship, or you've been carrying many things for too long without the right amount of support, then you're going to feel the strain of carrying that role.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important too to point out it's not just about stress. You know, there is a certain amount of stress that you're going to feel in any role that you're carrying, but it's the pervasiveness of the stress. It's how it's actually interfering in your ability to fulfill some of those obligations and expectations that you have and some of those responsibilities, and how it's impacting the relationship. Again, we're talking about relationships here, and we want to bring this up because of how much it can impact a healthy relationship, right?
Okay. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that, you know, just as much as people may be taking on too much, and we talked a little bit about that in the last podcast, how they may be taking on too much, and that's where they're feeling some of the role strain. Some of the role strain also comes from not being able to fulfill some of the obligations at all. Maybe you don't have the ability or the resources to fulfill some of those obligations, and so you're feeling the strain because you can't even actually step into it.
Yeah. And I also want to add this notion of invisible labor because that's going to be
Oh,
super
okay.
important to the conversation as we talk about how you can fall into role strain and your partner not even realize it.
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah, for
Right.
sure. For sure. Well, break that down a little bit. What do you mean?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Invisible labor is labor that you do in the relationship that is not always accounted for.
Mm,
Washing the dishes is something that we have to do, whether we're loading the dishwasher or washing them by hand, washing the clothes, putting them away after they've been washed. Um, Making the doctor's appointments. There are little things that we do every week, sometimes every day, that we don't always factor into our exhaustion. There are things that we do that help us to get to the next point or the next task on the list. And without those things getting done, the whole system falls apart. But when we actually start to quantify how much a person is doing, those things don't even get factored in.
hmm.
And the invisible labor or the invisible tasks that people take on sometimes don't make it to the actual tally sheet in their partner's mind. Sometimes it doesn't make it to the tally sheet in the individual's mind who's doing it. And when we sit down as therapists and talk to people about their day, what it consists of, their week, and all the things that they're carrying, we often slow people down and make them pick it apart piece by piece so that they can see that if you're only counting the fact that you made it to work every day, you worked your 8 to 10 hour shift, you got home, you had dinner with the family, you got the kids down, and you got to bed, you might be missing 17 tasks that you
Yeah.
did just to get to those core tasks that we've learned to think of as big things.
Right.
And it's contributing to the exhaustion. And if your partner does not acknowledge those things, then you can start to feel unappreciated or resentful because they don't know how many extra steps go into making life work every day.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Absolutely excellent point. So when you think about those people who are in situations where they're all those extra things, I don't even want to say extra because, like you said, these are basically day to day tasks that don't get
Day to
included,
day.
right?
Right.
When those things aren't being included in the totality of what we have to do, and we're only focusing on the big things, for the person on the other side, what is going through their mind? What are some of the things you hear from people who are looking at their mate saying, "Well, I don't know why you would feel stressed." What do you think is going through their mind at that time, at that moment?
I think on some levels it's a luxury in those moments to maybe be blissfully ignorant to
Right.
some of the
Right.
invisible
Exactly.
labor, right?
Exactly.
They're
Right.
blissfully
Mhm.
ignorant to all the steps that they're missing that their partner is doing. But they may be thinking that their partner is not equipped or is not
Ooh,
necessarily, yeah, not
true.
equipped to do the role or carry out the responsibilities that either implicitly or explicitly have been placed on their backs, and they're usually thinking about the weight that they're carrying
Hmm.
and giving a lot of priority to the things that are on their to-do list every day, and that can make couples extremely defensive and unable to hear each other when they start to have this conversation.
And that's an excellent point because when I see that as well, what happens is that person is doubting, like you said, they're doubting that the other person has the capabilities to actually fulfill those roles.
Right.
And do you see how that starts to play in the relationship or even play on the amount of role strain that other person is feeling? So not
Right.
only am I struggling to fulfill this, but because you're doubting my ability to do this, I feel even worse. I feel even more guilt about not being
Hmm.
able to do that. So now the amount of strain that I'm feeling is being exacerbated by your lack of a vision of being able to see me. That sense of invisibility. I can only imagine for that person sitting in that. Like what does that feel like every single day? You're doing as much as you can. You're already feeling like you can't do everything that you have set out to do. And now this
Right.
person's coming in saying, well, you're just not, you're not focused enough, or you just don't know how to organize enough. How does that feel?
I see it every day in my clinical life and in the lives of some of my closest friends.
Mhm.
We have these high paced or fast paced and high functioning lives where we have bought into this idea that we can do it all and we can have it all,
Right.
which means that the task list for any given day is a moving target.
Hmm.
There's so much administrative work to do in the midst of maintaining the career, rearing children if you have children, caring for sick or aging parents,
Hmm.
that you literally have to be a jack of all trades on any given day to get most of the things done on your task list. And if you don't have the gift of being able to pivot on a dime or focus on several different dimensions, then you're going to feel inadequate a lot.
Oh yeah.
And it's unfortunate and it's unfair to place that burden on your shoulders if you don't realize that most of us can't pivot that way every day. It would be
Hmm.
like juggling 20 balls in the air without dropping one. And every day, the weight and the size of the balls changes without you
Hmm.
getting a break.
Yeah. And what do you do when you have someone who their mate does not want to help pivot? They don't want to step up. They almost refuse to step up. I see you struggling.
Right.
I know you're having a hard time with this. I know you believe that you have so much on your plate that you can't actually fulfill all the obligations or all the responsibilities. But why do I need to take more on my shoulders? Why should I pick up just because you can't do it?
Yeah, and that's usually coming from a partner who's a bit more one dimensional.
Hmm.
And I think we end up as therapists really sitting with each person in that partnership to try to get them to walk in the shoes of the other person
Hmm.
and also own that if you are the more one dimensional partner or you have the big job that takes all of your bandwidth to the point where you don't want to have anything to do with all the domestic labor or the individual tasks at home, you still have to foster this level of appreciation
Right.
for the skill set that your partner needs to get those things done, or you have to generate the cash to outsource those things
I was gonna say
so
the
that
exact same thing.
you and your partner can create the life that you want.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I was gonna say the same thing. It's like, okay, you don't want
Speak
to do
on
it.
it.
You don't want to step up into this, right? So
Speak on it,
you
right?
better figure out a way how to outsource this. You better figure out who you need to hire to fill in where you refuse to step up and you know that your mate can't. Or
Right.
not even so much that they can't, but they don't have they already have too much on their plate, right? So you better figure out how to pay for it if you don't want to. If you don't want to
Let's
do it yourself.
yeah. Let's talk about an example that I see that really speaks to that.
Okay.
Often a couple will get together, and let's say we're talking about a heterosexual couple, and at the outset, both partners are working,
Right.
generating income, and that income is contributing to the lifestyle that the couple wants to live. We bought the nice home, we bought the cars, we're still paying off student loans, maybe, and then we've got this master plan to start a family.
Mhm.
Well, when the baby comes, one partner may say, I don't want to go back to work for 3 years or until
Mm,
the baby gets into kindergarten, which is
okay.
a 5 year stint, right?
Right.
And that wasn't part of the agreement at the beginning, but the couple may decide we can pivot around that. Now we both see some value in that. Role strain shows up in this couple a lot because the financial stability is now in question.
Mhm.
They figure out how to make it work on one salary, but it means that they have to sacrifice and make some changes because we've added a mouth to the house,
Yep.
but the bills didn't change, but someone's not working.
Mhm.
And that person who's not working typically is expected to take on the domestic roles and do the thing they asked to do, which is rear
Right.
the child, make sure that they're home with the kid, right?
Major role strain right there.
Major role strain. I'll let you jump in here for a second before I go
No,
on
no, no, no,
because,
go on.
okay.
Keep preaching, girl.
Yeah,
Keep
so
going. Keep it
right.
going.
So here's the role strain because that help that we just talked about, the financial help that might be needed to carry rearing the child and still doing all the housework and maintaining all the administrative tasks, we don't have the funds for it.
Right. Yep.
But the partner who's stressed out because they're cooking all the meals, washing all the clothes and the dishes, making sure that the kid or children are doing what
Washing the
they're supposed to
bottles
do,
too. I keep hearing about washing the bottles.
washing the bottles,
I hear
right?
how much time that takes.
Either you're washing the bottles, washing the breast pump out, or the baby's on the breast, at
Mhm.
night, and you can't hand the baby off. There are so many nuances to becoming a family and having, children into the picture, that role strain starts to pop up, and the partner who wants the extra help, who's staying home, may feel guilty because I asked for this. I know what a big sacrifice this is because financially I pulled my contribution out, but somehow I still need more help
Yeah.
on my end.
Yep.
And the other partner says, well, I'm working extra to make more money. I've got a big job and I'm trying to go for a promotion, which means that I need to be focused in on work more so that we can make this type of situation work. I can't do more.
Mhm. Yeah.
We see
And
this all the time.
all the time. I mean, I'm thinking of so many examples right now. And you're right. The role strain, when you begin to build your family, as your family begins to evolve, and that's what we were talking about, that growth and that evolution of your family,
Yeah,
we do begin to have to take on different roles. And sometimes you may be staying home, where you were working before and contributing more financially, but now you're
right,
staying home to care for the child and everything else that goes along with that. And the other person may be picking up more hours, or picking up a second job. And so for both people, that change in roles and responsibilities actually brings out role strain for both of you. And so we often
right.
see when we see couples come in and they talk about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the line, why they haven't been able to connect, it kind of begins there because
Oh,
you've
yeah,
been so focused on what you have to do to maintain your side of the relationship that you create this distance instantly creates between you guys. You're focusing a lot more on the children, you're focusing a lot more on your job, you're focusing a lot more on taking care of things around the house, and you miss each other, you
that's
know,
right.
and you also have kind of retreated into your own corners because of how much stress you're feeling under the weight of those additional roles.
Oh, listen,
Your time
research,
hasn't
yeah,
changed. Your time, it's the same amount, you're still working with the same amount of
that's
time,
right. That's
but
right.
more responsibilities, right?
That's right. Right. Research tells us that marital satisfaction decreases with each child that's added to the
Yep.
family.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to be a buzzkill here and make people decide that they're not going to have kids, but the point is that when you add children, they become a divider.
Yeah.
Your interest as a parent is now focused on the kids' priorities first, and what's left over goes to your partner most often.
Right.
And when that happens, like you said, Tyreek, it becomes very hard to find meaningful ways to connect because there are only 24 hours in a day. So no matter how much gets put on your plate, you can only divide those hours 24 ways. We're never going to have
Right.
26 hours. We're not going to have 28
Never gonna
hours.
have
So it's
them.
always just a trade off of what you're going to prioritize.
Hmm.
And when two people go to their corners, as you said, it's so tempting to stay in that corner because when the kid goes down at night, that's your first opportunity sometimes to breathe, have a minute to be with yourself, to catch up on
Right.
your shows, to
Right.
to just decompress from work. And
Hmm.
we caution couples who do that because you can get into a rut very quickly and not
Yeah.
find a way to have meaningful connection or even sex and intimacy
Right.
when the children are young.
Yeah. Yeah. I also want to point out that for those people who find themselves in that situation, that there is a tremendous amount of guilt that you may be feeling in that position. Because as a person now who's sitting home, no, I don't want to say sitting home, you're at home because you're not sitting, you're working the entire time. Just be very
Right.
clear about that.
Right.
You're working the entire time, taking care of the child and trying to keep the house going. That now that you're not contributing financially to the house as much as you were before or at all, that there's a certain amount of guilt you're feeling when you see your mate leave and you know that they have to work extra hours. You know that they have to pick up a second job.
Right.
So you're feeling guilt for not being able to contribute that way anymore, right? And then on the other side, as a person going to work, you're feeling guilty because you know that your mate is dealing with a lot at home. And even though you're going to work, you know that when you're able to acknowledge it, because like we said, that a lot of people can't acknowledge it, who have a hard time acknowledging it. But when you're
Yeah.
able to acknowledge how much work that your mate is doing at home and how much stress they're feeling, even the strain and the guilt that they're feeling being at home, and you want to come home and contribute, and you can't because you have to come home later because you're working more hours or you took that second job, or
Right.
you're even more exhausted from you than when you were more before, and you need your own time to decompress. You start feeling guilty because you can't help them out as much as you would like to. So there's a lot of guilt that starts to creep into these relationships that again contribute more to that role strain. I can't do as much as I would like to do. I can't fulfill the obligations or the responsibilities or the expectations that I have for this relationship,
Right.
here. So I'm feeling this guilt now. And so what am I supposed to do with that? So let's talk a little bit about that. When you think about what your clients are going through and how they may be feeling that sense of guilt, how do you work with them around that guilt so that it's not contributing more to whatever conflict that they're already feeling about themselves or about their relationship?
Yeah. That guilt is a real thing, and it often presents itself, though, as defensiveness because there
Mm.
are. Let's talk about gas tanks for a second.
Okay.
We
All right.
don't have an unlimited amount of gas in our tank as individuals, and what you're talking about is depleting yourself almost daily so that when you come back together as a couple, there's nothing left in the tank to pull from, even if you want to be of help.
True.
And it impacts sex and intimacy, as I was saying earlier, and it impacts the emotional connection so much.
Hmm.
So when a couple realizes that by the time they get back together at the end of a day, if they're on the same shift, because sometimes it's really hard, Tyreek, where one person's working second shift and they don't get home until the
Yeah.
middle of the night, or
Yeah.
they're working overnight and then they get home and they take the baby to daycare or they get the kids off to school and then somehow they're supposed to sleep in the day, which is so hard,
Yep.
while their partner is gone, and then when their partner gets back they're going to work. I mean, we have seen it. the
Yep.
the toxic cycle is when two people get out of sync about it,
Hmm.
and when one partner goes to confront the other person is not in their space of compassion, empathy, and sensitivity. And
Yeah.
that's what I mean about the defensiveness.
Yeah.
Even though couples might be feeling guilty and at their core, on their best days, they want to help extra, when the tank is empty and it's been empty for a long time, they're not going to always be able to show up with the empathy and the support that's needed.
Hmm.
So, what do we do as therapists? First and foremost, we normalize how hard this dark
Yes.
passage
Yes. Yes.
is.
Normalize it. Yep. You're right.
It is the jungle. I tell my clients that the kids are domestic terrorists. And when you got two kids or more, it's really a struggle because now the playing field is beyond even. It's only
Hmm.
two of you, it's two of them, and they've got more needs than you got hands and feet. So it's
Indeed.
really a hostile takeover. I'm going to
Yep.
be honest with you,
Yep.
right? But we normalize, just as you said, how if you are in this posture for an extended amount of time, there are certain symptoms, we'll call them symptoms, that you're going to
Hmm.
see pop up. You're potentially going to be irritable. You're going to be anxious. You're going to potentially be short and defensive with each other if you're not having proper self care time or figuring a way to have time with your partner. And then we also talk about the importance of community.
Hmm. Oh yeah. Yep.
Community is the next piece. After we've normalized how crazy this dark passage is, we also then start helping couples look for those resources and sources of support that will help them to get the self care and just eke out a little bit of meaningful time with each other to recalibrate so that they can go back in and fight another round against the domestic terrorists, right? But you can't stay on the battlefield indefinitely. You get to come
Yeah.
in off the field. You
At a
get
certain
to
point,
be
right? At a certain,
triaged,
at a certain point, you run out of bullets. At a certain point, you run out of bullets, and you got to go back, right? So you get a little
exactly.
break.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
But what
yeah.
do you think are some things that we do to help combat this?
Well, I love what you said because that normalizing is essential. You're
Yeah.
not by yourself. Everyone's going through this to a certain degree.
Yeah.
The thing that I really want to point out, that I really want to kind of hammer home, is the point that you made about community,
Yeah.
because the idea that we're taking all this on ourselves is a really probably a very new phenomenon. The
Yes.
the concept of a nuclear family is really only about 60, 70 years old. So every generation for millennia before this, you had a much broader family. You had extended family around who helped you when
That's
you
right.
had a child, right? So you didn't take on all these tasks and all these responsibilities on your own.
That's
There are
right.
multiple people contributing to your household. You had a strong community around you. You had cousins helping you, you had siblings helping you, you had your parents helping you.
Right.
So you had all these people, and from multiple families. So you had all these people who were there helping you through this. So you weren't feeling the same amount of strain. You felt strain,
Right.
but not in the same way. So you doing this all on your own, and just the two of you, is a pretty new phenomenon. We're only talking about two generations where this has
Right.
really been going on. And so we're seeing the struggle with that. That's why
Yes.
we're seeing it so much in our practice, because this again is a very new phenomenon. So it is important, and I say this to my clients all the time, that you reach out beyond your household.
Mm-hmm.
If you're, because we have a lot of people, especially in this area, who are transient, who don't live, who aren't from here. So they don't
True.
have, me and I have a lot of family here. So reach out to other people. You have to grow your community when you get somewhere. So part of establishing your family in a new area is finding other people who are like-minded, people that you trust, people who have common interests, people that can grow with you, so that you have that support when you need it.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we come to a new area and we kind of isolate ourselves, or it's just us and our mate, and we're just taking on the world together without anybody else. Or even if we are making friends, we're really limiting those interactions, and we may not trust bringing our kids or leaving our kids with other people.
Right.
You have to figure out a way to do that. You have to
Yes.
figure out how to grow that community, so you're not doing it all on your own. It's important
Yeah.
that you have all those other people there with you, and not just you feeling like this, the two of us have to carry everything.
Agreed. And I want to talk about that domestic upkeep because we're not just talking about having community to watch the kids, but when we lived intergenerationally,
Hmm.
multiple family members of different generations in a household
Under one roof.
under one roof, or maybe it was a two flat or a brownstone, but a
Right.
duplex, whatever you call it in
Mhm.
your region
Multiple
of the
houses on one
world,
piece of land.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, whatever you were living in, uh, everybody chipped in, not just to watching and feeding and rearing the kids, but also to the cleaning.
Mhm.
I bring this up because there's this huge, huge debate about whether or not it's okay to pay for housekeepers and cleaners, right?
Mhm.
And amongst people who can afford it because they've got the big jobs or big careers making the big money, and because of that they are out working beyond 40 hours a week, sometimes not having time to do those things, they're feeling guilty about wanting to have cleaners come in to make sure that the house does get cleaned, and that
Mhm.
every couple of weeks we get behind the refrigerator and we clean the baseboards and
Mhm.
somebody cleans the crud off of the stove. These are things, again, that also came with a different level of family community. And
Right.
now we do have to pay for it.
Yeah.
We have to put it in place if we can't create that nuclear, I'm sorry, not nuclear, but that family of origin, intergenerational living situation again. And if we don't, then yeah, the house is a hot mess.
Mhm.
And when the clutter hits, partners are pointing fingers at each other, or they're having a hard time thinking and functioning in the home because it's so much in a state of
Mhm.
disarray.
But or
So,
even oh,
yeah.
sorry. I was gonna say even on
No.
the other side of that too, maybe you are focusing a lot on making sure that the upkeep is there, but you're not focusing on yourself. So you don't have a chance to
Mhm.
recharge. That
Right.
self-care is sidetracked because you're focusing on absolutely everything else. But you
Yeah.
never, like we said before, there's times you need to get off that battlefield. So you have to be able to care for yourself, and you can't do that
Yeah.
if you're investing all your time, all your energy into these other tasks. But I'm sorry,
Yeah,
what were you gonna say?
I'm just gonna piggyback off of that and say that our generation of parents didn't necessarily teach us how to rest, though.
Oh no.
So it's
Not
like
at
we're we're
all.
we're applying
Sorry,
this
mom.
old school mentality to these new school lives that we're living in. Yeah, no disrespect, and I too am. I'm definitely guilty of this. I still scrub the floors by hand. I still pull the refrigerator out and clean the baseboards.
Domestic
I'm
Weena.
still,
Go ahead, girl.
yo, I get it in. And I take pride in making sure that my home is spotless at all times,
Right,
but my profession allows me to do that.
right.
Even if it didn't, I would probably be trying to do it. And I have friends and clients who clean for the cleaners because they're so embarrassed that
I've heard
there's,
that multiple
a
times.
certain level of dirt that the cleaners are even coming into that they're like, oh, the cleaners are coming tomorrow. I got to clean for
Yeah.
the cleaners. It
Yep.
is a real thing. And people
Yep.
out there who have cleaners, I know you all are cracking up because I'm stepping on your toes right now. But that cleaning, and trying to maintain everything and not rest, that is a byproduct of where I come from.
Yeah.
But I always remind myself that my parents didn't have the type of job or career that I have. Their homes didn't cost what my home costs. We're just living under different circumstances that cause us to have to pivot and open our minds to more unconventional ways of building that community and getting that support.
Yeah.
My parents didn't take vacations multiple times a year. If we got in the car and rode to the Wisconsin Dells in the Midwest, we were doing something, right? And we didn't go out to eat a lot. There were just so many different things that we need to consider when we think about what older generations did and how they kept house or didn't complain about taking
Yeah.
care of the kids. That, and I know you and Dr. John talked about that a bit during the last podcast episode about role strain, but it really is important to remember that this is not apples to oranges,
Yeah.
not at
Not at all.
all.
Not at all. Not at
Apples
all.
to apples. It is apples to oranges. It's not apples to apples.
Let's go back to another thing we had started earlier. Let's talk about some examples of role strain. How you actually experience role strain. Like what are some of the expectations that you have or some of the responsibilities that you have that begin to feel overwhelming.
Mm.
And now you are in a place where role strain is a serious thing for you, where it is a pervasive part of the ills of your relationship. What are some examples of what
Mhm.
people may experience as role strain?
You two began to talk about this in episode one about role strain, where there are two income earners in the household, but one is expected to work and then also take on the domestic tasks and that invisible labor that I'm talking about. Now, we've established
Right.
today that even if one person comes out of a career or a job and is at home trying to juggle all the invisible labor and the domestic tasks and make sure that things are keeping, afloat, it can be a lot. But when two people are working and then we say it, baby comes along or doesn't come along, if you are not well versed in what the other person is holding or what it takes to do their job, the
Hmm.
role strain comes in when one person is responsible for making sure that the dentist appointments, the doctor's appointments are made, even down to the social calendar.
Right.
If I'm the only person who's out there building community,
Yep.
making sure that we have friends, making sure that we are going out on a date every
Hmm.
week or every month,
Because we got
scouting
coverage.
scouting out, yeah, new little things for us to do, so the relationship is not just work, come home, go to bed, get back up and do it all over again. Even that is a form of role strain that really pops up early in most relationships, and sometimes the partner who is being complained to doesn't take that very seriously.
Yeah, yeah, very true.
Yeah,
Very
what
true.
do you got?
One of the things that I don't think people really consider when they talk about role strain, if they even consider role strain, is absentee parenthood or absentee fatherhood, right?
Yeesh, ooh.
Yeah. And not to excuse it, but recognizing that for some absentee fathers, the reason why they got there in the first place is because of a sense of role strain. I mean, some people generally have no interest in, raising kids or raising kids with a certain person. But for some people who have a sense of responsibility and may be underemployed and can't contribute financially in the way that they believe that they want to or should to the
Mhm.
household, some people just take off, which gets
Mm.
into a deeper conversation around believing you have the option to let go when you're feeling strained, right? That's why they talk about how strong black women are, because oftentimes black women seem to not have the belief that there's
Option,
a
okay.
choice, option, yeah, option or
Mhm.
belief that
Yeah,
they can give in. So no matter how much pressure you guys seem to be under, you find a way to work through it. And not saying that you should,
yeah,
that you do need relief, but you'll
right.
find a way to work through it. Where a lot of other people from different communities won't do the same thing, where they'll fold or they'll lean on somebody else. Black women seem to maintain that independent spirit and say that I will get through this one way or another, and I will take care of this. I may be bitter, I may be angry all the time because I have this, this strain, this stress on me, and I'm feeling overwhelmed, and there's no one to help me with it. And so, my kids feel it, and
Yeah.
then so there's a whole other back half of that. But recognize that for some people, they believe that they can just throw their hands up and say, "Hey, I'm done. I'm feeling the strain. I'm feeling the stress. It's too much for me. I can't fulfill my obligations. I'm gone." And so you see that as a outgrowth of some of that role strain that people experience. So parents who step away because they can't fulfill
Mm.
the obligations, that is a form of role strain.
It creates a form of role strain, or we're talking about the strain that leads them to walk away, or both?
I think a little bit of both, but more so that
Yeah,
leads them to walk away because you felt so much pressure to fulfill things that you don't have the ability to fulfill because
right,
maybe you're underemployed, or maybe you do
right.
have a disability, or there could be, something that's just in the way of you being able to do those things, to be able to contribute how you want to contribute. And so you step away. So I think for the most part, yes, it's the latter, that because of the inability to fulfill those roles, that's what contributes to you leaving.
Yeah, guilt and inadequacy are powerful, powerful things.
Yeah.
And your thing is regret. You are
Mhm.
big on talking about the impact of guilt on relationships. And just pausing here for a quick second
Yeah.
to show some empathy to those who are overcome by it.
Hmm.
You are pointing out a really important piece that some folks, when they cannot show up the way they expected themselves to,
Right.
that could be generational pressure, it could be societal pressure, it could be internal pressure.
Yeah.
When they have to pivot because life threw a curveball at them and they no longer are in the position that they once were, like you said, and can't do the things that they want to do, instead of staying to do the things that they can do and sitting under that weight, the feeling of inadequacy, the feeling of helplessness, they do roll out.
Yeah. Yep.
They do roll out. And it's hurtful to the children involved. It's hurtful to the partner involved when we're talking about families. And it heaps a whole lot of responsibility on the person who has no real choice other than to stick around unless they're going to drop a 13-year-old off at the fire department. And they don't. A 13-year-old can't fit in
Mm,
a basket where you leave the
hmm.
baby in a
I wonder
basket
who
on the
we could be talking
doorstep.
about right now. I wonder who we could be
Oh.
talking about right now. Hmm. Hmm. Sounds a little personal there.
Oh my God, you're right. My daughter is 13, but it wasn't personal. You are so funny.
You picked a
You
very specific age.
That is
how do you how
funny.
do you pick that specific age? But the thing that we're actually talking about here is, people feeling like they need to drop out. When you get to the point where you're so overwhelmed by the strain
Right.
that you feel the need to drop out. And dropping out isn't necessarily an option. So what do we do? Especially as clinicians, as working with these clients who are experiencing this, how do we help them overcome that sense of role strain? What are some of I don't want to say cure-alls, but what are some of the things that we can do to help them realize that what you're going through again is normal, but
Yeah.
there's ways to get out of that. What are some of the ways to overcome that sense of role strain?
Yeah, this is a good uh point to exit at. There it's a luxury if we get to catch partners at a point where they have not yet dropped out and there's still some
Mhm.
hope. It
Right.
really is
Okay.
because
Yeah. True.
I think the step before that is them even carving out the time and having the resources to come and see us,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
the very thing that we're talking about, where there's only 24 hours in a day and only so much room on your plate, it prevents individuals and couples from even being able to slow down and get the help that they need to parse through the resentment and the frustration and the physical exhaustion that's caused by a very normal phenomenon called relationshiping, marriage, partnershiping, and parenting. I mean,
No doubt.
it's just adulting, right?
True indeed. True
It's just
indeed.
adulting, right?
Yeah.
So if we are lucky enough to actually get couples in our space, I mean, we just love on them and hug on them and normalize this, and we try to direct them to resources. I mean, we are in there picking their lives apart, really helping them understand what community they can piece together, and we champion the cause all the way to the end. We help them build the structures, we help them make space for each other, we bring them back to the empathy and the compassion. We look at the schedules with a fine-tooth comb and find all the ways that their boundaries may be causing stress and strain and
Right.
prohibiting them from being able to divide their time in ways that help them to live a more balanced life. So we do all kinds of things, not short of sprinkling pixie dust on people to get them to where they need to be, Tyreek. But I
Yeah.
think I hit some of the important things.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. And I appreciate that. And I think some of the things that I've done is one is help with building resilience, because the fact of the matter is you're
Yeah,
not gonna get any more time. You may not get any more economic help, so
true.
financially you may just be where you are. And so you may not have the option to do some of the things that we talked about. You may have to actually figure out how to endure the responsibilities that you have. So in doing that, we may need to talk about resilience and tolerance and acceptance. And so
Yeah,
working on that to a degree too, figuring out how to manage things better. Maybe you're not managing your time well. So let's talk about time management.
that's right.
You know,
That's
so
right.
there are techniques that we can actually implement in the work that we're doing that will allow you to feel less stressed. And that's not to say that's going to take all the stress away. That's not to say it's going to take anything off your plate necessarily, but it's
Right.
just learning how to deal with it better. The other part is what you also just mentioned is that sense of empathy and compassion. Having compassion and empathy for your mate, but also having it for yourself. I remember
Hmm.
reading a study years ago where they talked about men. I think it was in Chicago. They're doing a men's group, working with a men's group, and the topic came up around the sense of guilt and lack of ability to fulfill certain roles in their family, and how guilty they felt, and how self-deprecating they could be when they thought about
Mm.
what they were going through. But then
Yes.
when the researcher turned the question around, well, if you're talking to someone else in this group who's dealing with some of the similar issues that you're experiencing,
Yeah.
how would you talk to them? And you found that those same people who are so self-deprecating express a great deal of compassion for people who are in similar situations. So you have less expectations for them to fulfill all the things that they're feeling bad about than you do for yourself. And recognizing, well, if you have that kind of compassion for them, why don't you have it for yourself? Again, not saying that you don't have to do the work, Not saying that you don't still have these obligations and these responsibilities, that you still have these expectations to fulfill. But why
Yeah.
would you not give yourself the same sense of compassion that you'll give to other people? So we
Wow.
have a lot of work to do around that sense of compassion for yourself and for your mate. So those
Yeah.
are some of the things that come to mind when I think about the work that we do in session with our clients. So anyway, it's time for us to kind of wrap this up. So, Weena, I want to thank you for coming in here and adding what you add, of course, the brilliance that you bring to this table
Of course.
as part of the Royal Cypher. So, why don't you give our listeners a couple of noble truths, something to walk away from here with from today's conversation?
I'll end where I started. Too much of anything is a bad thing.
Hmm.
Moderation, moderation. And when you find yourself slipping away from your balance, don't wait until you are so depleted or your tank is so empty that you can't even make it to our office to get help. Uh,
Right.
your gut is not fooling you. Your intuition is spot on. You're doing too much, and you may need help outside of yourself and outside of your relationship to understand what you can do differently to get through the dark passage. And I just want to leave it there.
Okay. All right. And I would say, just to add to that, my noble truth for this week is, again, you're not by yourself. What
Yes.
you're experiencing, a lot of people are experiencing, and
Yep.
they're dealing with it in very different ways. So what you have on your shoulders, what you're carrying around with you, you don't have to carry it the same way. If you have the ability, like Weena said, if you have the ability and the resources to come in and sit down and talk to us, we'll help you manage it better.
That's right.
That's what therapists are here for. So not only we can help you manage it better, but again, we want to help you figure out a way to feel more compassion for what you're going through. Because again, you're not by yourself. How
That's
can we
right.
help you organize your life a little bit better? How can we get you to reach out and grow your community? But then how can we also help you feel better about yourself and
And
what you're going
reconnect
through?
with your partner. Right.
Without a doubt. Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely have to
That's
do
right.
that. So again, those are my noble truths for this week. I am so appreciative, like I said, to Weena for being able to come in and talk to us, add to this conversation that Dr. John and I started. What was it? 2 weeks ago, I
About,
guess. Yes,
yeah.
3 weeks
Yeah.
ago. It's been a little while. It's been a little while. But
Yeah.
that's it for us. And so, Miss Weena, why don't
Yep.
you tell
Yep.
people where they can find out more information about you and what you got going on?
Oh man, if you want to connect with me, definitely go to my website, Covenant Therapy. The domain is covenanttherapy.com, and you can read some of my articles and connect with a therapist there if needed. And it's a lot of good stuff there. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Weena Wise or Covenant Therapy Group.
All right. There's so much stuff that Winnie has going on. I can't wait for us to be able to talk about it. So
That's
I'm excited. I'm
right.
excited. I'm excited for Winnie in 2024. You
That's
know,
right.
yes, very excited for her.
Yes, sir.
As for myself and Dr. John and Kings of the Heart, you can go to kingsoftheheart.com. You can also follow us on Instagram and all the other social media sites as Kings of the Heart or Kings of the Heart podcast. Also, like you can see right here, we are streaming live now. So you can watch us live or you can watch us later on, watch the actual episodes on YouTube and some of the other streaming sites. And you can hear us streaming on Apple, on Pandora, on all the
Too
different.
much, too much.
We're
All the streaming
everywhere. We're everywhere.
platforms. I
If you put in
mean,
Kings of Heart anywhere, you will find
woo.
us. Okay. So if you want to see
Yes.
us or just listen to us, we're available
Yes.
to you. So that's it for us. And again, for Tyreek Walton, that's me. You can
That's
also go to
right.
my website, TyreekAmariWalton.com, or you can go to my therapy website, InsightMFT.com. All right. So
That's right.
again, Ms. Weena, thank you so much for joining us today. The Cypher. I just love having the Cypher around. I wish the other partners well. And everybody, look, you guys take care, and we will see you again soon.
Have a great day. See
Bye,
ya.
y'all.